Welcome back, everybody, to another week of Sunday School here at the Lighthouse Church of the Nazarene in Moravia, Iowa, where we're going through the book of Isaiah. This week we are in Isaiah chapter 29. Now, right now we are in a section of Isaiah known as the Book of Woes. And this section is started in chapter 28, and it's going to go all the way to chapter 33. And these woes, they're warnings of disaster and judgment that will come upon the nation of Israel and the city of Jerusalem. And why is God going to come against them? Because they're unfaithful and they're not trusting in Him. They are trusting in foreign alliances instead of trusting in the Lord. Now, I have an interesting story to start us out. At the Constitutional Convention in 1787, Ben Franklin stood up before everybody and he made this famous quote. He said, "I have lived a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proof I see that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground apart from his notice, it is probable that an empire cannot rise without his aid." He then used this quote as an urging that daily prayers should be made in the legislation every day to seek wisdom from God for the government. Now, the prophet Isaiah, he was trying to bring this same attitude to Jerusalem, but he wasn't having much luck. So let's just dig in and get started here. We're in the book of Isaiah, chapter 29, verse 1. Let's get out our Bibles. Let's follow along. Isaiah says, "Woe to Ariel, the city where David dwelt." Now, what does Ariel mean? Ariel means Lion of God, and it's just another name for the city of Jerusalem. But the city of Jerusalem, only right here is it referred to as Ariel. "Add year to year, let feasts come around, yet I will distress Ariel." God's saying, hey, Jerusalem, guess what? I'm going to come against you. How scary is that to have God say, I am coming against you? Now, when we hear the word woe, like in the beginning here, woe to Ariel, it should cause us to pause because it's a warning. It's telling us that judgment is coming. Verse 2, "Yet I will distress Ariel. There will be heaviness and sorrow, and it shall be to me as Ariel." Verse 3, "I will encamp against you all around. I will lay siege against you with a mound, and I will raise siege works against you." Siege warfare was actually the most terrifying form of warfare there was because it's not quick and over with. It lasts forever, and the people start to starve to death. There's actually been records of people eating shoe leather and wallpaper paste, pets, dead people. They refer to cannibalism. In the Bible, we actually saw them cooking their own children. So they see their children waste away in front of them, and there's nothing they can do about it. So siege warfare, which God is talking about right here, it's the most terrifying form of warfare there is. Verse 4, "You shall be brought down. You shall speak out of the ground. Your speech shall be low out of the dust. Your voice shall be like a medium out of the ground, and your speech shall whisper out of the ground." God's saying, there's going to be dead people. Some of you are going to die. God has a way of humbling people that need humbled. The Bible tells us that God is no respecter of person. It says that in Acts 10:34. So even being God's chosen people, the Jews, even being the great city of Jerusalem, guess what? That wasn't going to secure it from God's destruction. Let's keep going. Verse 5. "Moreover, the multitude of your foes shall be like fine dust, and the multitude of the terrible ones like chaff that passes away. Yet it shall be in an instant, it shall be suddenly. You will be punished by the Lord of hosts with thunder and earthquakes and great noise, with storm and tempest and the flame of devouring fire. The multitude of all the nations who fight against Ariel, even all who fight against her and her fortress, and distress her, shall be as a dream of a night vision." Now, this actually happened. What God is saying here is, okay, the nations that I bring against you in form of judgment, I am then going to destroy them. And we'll probably read more about that next week. But it happened in 2 Kings chapter 19. The Assyrians, they came against Hezekiah. Hezekiah didn't know what to do. And in one night, God destroyed 185,000 Assyrians. And then Sennacherib went back home and he was murdered by his two sons. So what God is saying here, guess what? Those people that fight against Jerusalem, I'm going to take care of them also. Let's go to verse 8 here. So it shall be as a dream of a night vision. It shall even be as when a hungry man dreams. He looks, he eats, but he awakes and his soul is still empty. Or when a thirsty man dreams and looks and he drinks, but he awakes and indeed he is faint, and his soul still craves. So the multitude of all the nations shall be who fight against Mount Zion. So he's saying, what you think you're going to do, it's going to be like a hungry man dreaming. He's hungry in his dreams. He eats something, but he wakes up and he's still hungry. Dreams are weird, aren't they? Do you ever have those reoccurring weird dreams like you're trying to run and your feet won't move, or you're trying to yell and you can't talk, or you're missing all your clothes in public? Some of those reoccurring dreams can be scary. But what God's saying right here is any nation that fights against God, this is what's going to happen to it. In Zechariah 2:8, God says, he who touches you, the nation of Israel, the city of Jerusalem, touches the apple of his eye. Let's keep going here. Where are we at? We're in verse 9. Pause and wonder, blind yourselves and be blind. They are drunk, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with intoxicating drink. For the Lord has poured out on you the spirit of deep sleep and has closed your eyes, namely the prophets, and he has covered your heads, namely the seers. So he's going back to the religious people of Jerusalem right here. And he's saying, hey, I'm going to bring upon you a spiritual deep sleep. It's spiritual lethargy, spiritual apathy, just a lack of energy, a lack of enthusiasm, unconcerned about the things of God, disinterested about the things of God. It's interesting. People ask, is the United States in the Bible at the end times, in the book of Revelations? I was just reading something the other day that said, yeah, it is. It's in Revelation chapter 3, and it's the lukewarm church, the church of Laodicea. Let me read it for you real quick. Because you say, I am rich, have become wealthy, and have need of nothing, and do not know that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. That's the lukewarm church right there. God's going to bring a spirit of deep sleep. Do we have that today in the United States? Some people could say we maybe do. I know preachers have been told that you can't go longer than 20 minutes or people just lose interest in it. People go and sit out at midnight for Black Friday shopping in the cold, but to get interested in the things of God, nah, they don't have time for that. All right, let's keep going here. Verse 11. The whole vision has become to you like the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to the one who is literate, saying, read this, please. And he says, I cannot, for it is sealed. Verse 12. Then the book is delivered to one who is illiterate, saying, read this, please. And he says, I am not literate. Therefore, the Lord says, inasmuch as these people draw near to me with their mouths and honor me with their lips, but have removed their hearts far from me, and their fear toward me is taught by the commandments of men. Now, this is interesting here. Jesus actually quoted this in Matthew chapter 15. The Pharisees come to Jesus and said, hey, why do your disciples transgress the commandments of God? For they do not wash their hands before they eat. And Jesus says, no, that's just a commandment of men. That's not taught in the Bible. Now, actually, there's nothing wrong with washing your hands. It's a good thing. But the Jews at the time, that was how they did their religious. That's how they thought they honored God, by a specific way of washing their hands. Our relationship with the Lord, it can't just be external rituals. It can't just be, okay, I checked that box. I did a daily devotion real quick. I went to church. It has to be internal. Remember what God told Samuel. Man looks at outward appearance. God looks at the heart. In the book of Joel, it's Joel 2:13. God says, render your hearts and not your garments. I think a modern paraphrase of that would be open your hearts and not just your checkbooks. I think a lot of people think, as long as I write a check to the church, I'm good. Let's keep going here. Verse 14, therefore, behold, I will again do a marvelous work amongst this people, a marvelous work and a wonder, for the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hidden. Verse 15, woe to those who seek deep to hide their counsel far from the Lord, and their works are in the dark. They say, who sees us and who knows us? This also is interesting here. People who are trying to hide what they do from God. In the 16th chapter of Genesis, if you remember, it's a story of Abraham, Sarah, and Sarah's maid, Sarah's servant Hagar. Remember, Abraham gets Hagar pregnant, and then Sarah starts wanting to be mean to Hagar, so she runs away, and God shows up to Hagar and comforts her and says, hey, that baby that you're pregnant with, it's going to be great. Everything's going to be okay. And Hagar calls God El Roi, which means the God who sees me. Back to Isaiah here. He's saying, oh, people are hiding their counsel from God and saying, oh, God doesn't see us. God doesn't know what was going on. Do you know? Yeah, God sees and knows everything. In fact, I've heard it said that God loves us so much that he can't take his eyes off of us. Psalm 33:18 says, the eye of the Lord is on those who fear him. Psalm 15:3 says, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping over the evil and good. I tell you what, if you're not living for the Lord, you don't take comfort this and you want to hide what you're doing from God. But if you're living for the Lord, you take great comfort in this because God knows everything that's going on in our lives. He knows exactly what we're going through. And all we have to do is put our trust in him. All right, let's keep going here. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about in this chapter. Verse 16, surely you have things turned around. Shall the potter be esteemed as the clay? For shall the thing made say of him who made it, he did not make me? Or shall the thing formed say of him who formed it, he has no understanding? We get this illustration in the Bible, I think 4 different times of the potter and the clay. Isaiah 64:8 says, we are the clay, you are the potter, we are all the work of your hands. Now, the modern day idiom of being putty in somebody's hands, that descended from the idea of the potter or the clay. So the entire idea of the potter and the clay is that God is the potter. He has absolute authority over us and over everything to do as he wills. It's called the sovereignty of God, all powerful. Now, you and I, we like to take this sovereignty onto ourselves and say, oh, we can handle things on our own until we get into trouble. And then we hand it over to God and say, oh, God, please help me out of this spot. But then when everything gets okay again, we say, oh, okay, I can now do this again on my own. We need to quit doing that. So God's the potter. He can do with us as he wants. We are the clay. We're just common, worthless material. But because of the potter, God, we can be molded into something of great value. Remember, Jesus said, without me, you can do nothing. And then, if you go to Jeremiah chapter 18, we have the story of Jeremiah going to the potter's house, and the vessel has a mar in it. Those are mistakes we make. We all make mistakes. We all have mars. But guess what? God, with the potter's wheel, he can remove those mars and reform us into something else. But where we got to talk about right here is what they said. For shall the thing made, that's us, say of him who made it, that's God, he did not make me. How many people say this? It gets taught in schools, actually. Oh, God didn't make us. We just evolved over random chance and billions of years. How foolish is it to say, as the Bible just said, that God did not make me? Think of how complex the universe is. Think of how complex you and I are. It is absolutely foolish to say that, oh, yeah, this surely just happened somehow. If you looked at a kid's whistle, found it on the ground, just a kid's whistle, you would look at that and say, somebody designed this thing. Somebody put some thought into this thing because this could not just appear out of nothing. But yet look at the complexity of the human body and people say, oh yeah, that must just have appeared and evolved over millions and billions of years. It's absolutely foolish. All right, let's keep going here. Verse 17. Is it not yet a very little while till Lebanon shall be turned into a fruitful field? Now, Lebanon was actually known for being a forest, the cedars of Lebanon. God's going to change it into a fruitful field. What this is saying is, hey, change is coming. And the fruitful field be esteemed as a forest. Verse 18. In that day the deaf shall hear the words of the book, and the eyes of the blind shall see out of obscurity in the darkness. It's in Matthew chapter 11. John the Baptist is sitting in prison, and John the Baptist sends his servants to Jesus and says, hey, are you the coming one, or do we look for another? Jesus tells John the Baptist's disciples, say, go back to John and tell him these things. The blind see and the lame and the deaf hear, the lame walk, and the leopards are cleansed. He's referring to this right here. It's Jesus is saying, yep, I'm the one. Let's keep going here. Verse 19, the humble also shall increase their joy in the Lord, and the poor among men shall rejoice in the Holy One of Israel. For the terrible one is brought to nothing, the scornful one is consumed, and all who watch for iniquity are cut off, who make a man an offender by a word, and lay a snare for him who reproves in the gate, and turns aside the just by empty words. Verse 22, and we're almost done. Therefore, thus says the Lord, who redeemed Abraham concerning the house of Jacob. Jacob shall not now be ashamed. Now, why would Jacob be ashamed? Because he would be ashamed of his kids. They weren't following the Lord. But he says now they're not going to be ashamed. This is a picture of Jacob looking over all his descendants, knowing that they are following God and trusting in the Lord. Verse 23, but when he sees his children, the work of my hands in his midst, they will hallow my name and hallow the Holy One of Jacob and fear the God of Israel. Verse 24, these also who erred in spirit will come to understanding, and those who complained will learn doctrine. God's saying truth is going to be taught. Spiritual blindness is going to go away. It's in the book of Hosea. It's Hosea 4:6. God says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. How many people are just destroyed for lack of knowledge? They don't know the truth. And what is the truth? That Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through him. If you know that, you're in good shape, and you know the truth. And we're done for this week, Isaiah 29. Next week we'll be in Isaiah chapter 30. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you learned something. And I'll see you at the same time, same place next week. Bye.